On this
Not the best
beautiful
time
snowy day,
in Toronto.
we are having a word about pips,
Yeah,
pips,
and how not fun they are.
pips. Performance improvement plans for those not in the
Mhm.
no,
Lucky
fortunate
enough.
enough to be
Yeah.
not in the know.
And the question of, does your manager hate you?
Yeah, pips, aka, are
Yeah.
you about to be fired?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know if I've ever heard of anybody who successfully completed a PIP, me included. So,
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
would you agree with the
Um,
idea that if it's just a kind of a soft way of firing you, and while they are communicated as we want you to like do this and do that and improve in this area, like no matter what you do in most circumstances you're never going to reach whatever it is because they don't want you to.
well, so I think it's nuanced as all things are. And I think that even if you successfully complete a PIP, your reputation is tarnished.
Yeah.
So it makes it more difficult if you had plans within that company, like advancement, etc. It makes
Hmm.
it you're on a quite the uphill battle, even if you successfully completed the PIP.
Hmm.
And do I think that it's largely used to potentially move to letting people go? A lot of the time, yeah, it definitely is. The reason it is though is not necessarily, at least in Canada. I don't think we can speak for other countries at this point
Hmm.
because this is kind of uniquely what I've experienced in Canada. There is you if you let somebody go, you're letting them go without cause, which basically means that you've replaced their role or you've eliminated their role, and it's like no fault of them. It's just there isn't a place for that their role in a company anymore. It's not about the person; it's about the role. And so if you let somebody go without cause and then you immediately advertise and hire the exact same role, you can get into a lot of trouble, right? Because like legally. And so your other option then is with cause, which is, yeah, like this person is either not doing their work or they've done something egregious in the company, like their behaviors, by whatever that is. There's a reason that we don't want this person to work for a company. So, like, without cause is about the role, with cause is about the person. And if you want to let someone go with cause, if you were to be legally challenged on that cause, you have to have the paperwork to back up that you actually did have a legitimate cause that could stand up in court if you were to be sued, to let this person go. And so, of course, when you're letting somebody go with cause, it's not very pleasant. And there's going to be a lot of people who are upset in that thing. And therefore, your likelihood of it going through legal, like if you were to be sued, etc., goes up, right? Because people are upset and all sorts of stuff. And
Yeah.
so, normally, a lot, what will happen a lot is that managers, leaders, etc., will be like, we need to let this person go because of X, Y, and Z reason. But we have to cover our ass, and so let's make sure it's well documented. The cause is well documented, and the easiest way to do that is to put them on a PIP, document the cause, and then for them to not succeed.
Hmm.
Um, and normally, if you're letting somebody go with cause and you've talked to them about it before, maybe verbally, and you've said, yeah, like you need to do this, this, and this, or you're not doing this, this, and this, and like you need to sort this out, and they don't do it, and then they get put on a PIP, the odds are the PIP isn't going to make them do it either. And so you see a lot of people failing PIPs and being let go because their cause was well established and the PIP was basically just a way to document the cause.
Yeah.
So that's one way, and I think that's a very common way that it's used. It's really just to document something, an existing problem.
Hmm.
Now, of course, you're going to have the bad managers who will misuse pips, right? Or even
Hmm.
let you go without cause because they just don't like a person or they're threatened by a person or they're just making up reasons. That of course happens. Like nobody's denying that. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
but that's kind of one of the ways. I think that's why we see it so commonly being used as the route out the door is because they're trying to document cause to make
Yeah.
sure that they're covered if there was any legal challenge. Um,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
that part of it.
I think, well, now people are catching on to it, right? I've seen it so often.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Now
yeah.
it doesn't like I've got a lot more to say on all of the other scenarios and pips, but have I guess like you say you haven't ever seen someone like you've never seen it being used with an act genuine effort to try and like help the
Hmm.
person.
No, it's always been the person who's putting the employee on a PIP, oh, just seems to have a vendetta against them, or they just don't like them, or they rub each other up the wrong way, or something like that. They're
Mm,
just not a fit. And therefore, it's just a way for them to get rid of the person, pretty
mhm,
much without having to say, like, I don't like them, or they don't work the way I like to work, and I'm not open to being flexible on that either. So, yeah, I haven't seen it work. I've never witnessed it in Ireland, though. I've only seen it here. Like there seems to be
mm.
a more of an emphasis on it here in Canada. Not sure why that is.
I think it's because of the legal reasons, right? I think
Oh,
it's because of that documentation, because you don't really see it a huge amount, or at least I haven't seen it with like US folks a lot, because they don't have as many protections in terms of employment. So a lot of people are working in like at will states, and so they can just be let go, they can
hmm,
just be fired, like, and nobody needs to explain why. Um,
yeah.
and so that's why I think we see it a lot more in Canada, because the legal system kind of uh, drives a lot of that documentation behavior, and so you see
Hmm,
it's being used. So I've
hmm,
actually seen two other examples. I've been involved in two other examples of PIPs being used with good intentions.
hmm. Oh, are they the only two examples in the world that exist?
Maybe.
Wow.
So I'll tell you about what. Oh, I'll tell you about one, and we can see if we get the
Yeah.
other one. So this is an interesting one because I was involved in conjunction with like, kind of HR in getting an employee on a PIP. But the reason was because their management, like their manager and their boss and their boss's boss, there's like two kind of layers of hierarchy involved. Um, we had received kind of complaints about how they were managing people and that they weren't being completely fair.
Hmm,
And not just from this like individual, but from other people as well. And we had also kind of observed, right, a little bit of like,
hmm,
just doesn't like feel right. And at the time, the boss and the boss's boss were moving to let this person go. And they were actually in the States, so they didn't need to do all of the stuff that we would normally have to do in Canada
hmm.
to do that. And so we actually pushed to have the employee put on a PIP because we wanted to prove that they were being unfairly treated. And they successfully completed the PIP, and continued on. So like we kind of had heard the reasons that they wanted to fire the person. We were like, that
Hmm,
doesn't. There's something about that that's not landing right. Like that doesn't
hmm.
like feel appropriate. It
Fair.
just doesn't
Hmm,
feel well structured. Like it just there doesn't seem to be anything behind it.
hmm,
And
hmm.
so we had said, well, no. So we kind of push, company policy, like company policy. If you're worried about their performance, let's get them on a performance improvement plan. And so we set them, the goals and the stuff that they should be doing,
Hmm.
um, very specifically. So there was no subjective assessment of this stuff. It was just, did they do this? Did they do that? Um, and they successfully
And they
completed it
did.
and didn't get let go, right? So it was actually a way to, and we had discussed this with the employee as well, right? And I think we had a lot of trust built up. So, they kind of understood, and like they also understood that they were potentially on the chopping block. So
Hmm.
they kind
Yeah.
of saw this as like,
Get your act
oh,
together.
well, not even that. They saw that they were on the chopping block unfairly
Okay.
and knew that like it was kind of either they would fire them or we would try and help them not get fired by proving that they were being treated unfairly. And
Hmm,
the best way we could do that was put them on a performance improvement plan. Um, and so they were able to prove that they were actually doing a good job and there was no reason to
hmm.
have them fired. And so therefore the boss and the boss's boss, um, they didn't have any justification to fire this person. And so they couldn't.
Wow,
Uh,
that seems like the exception because I don't think many people would support the employee that much or want them to like, want them to succeed. I don't know. The ones I've seen have always been like, okay, they just go with what the manager, whoever wants to get rid of them says,
mm,
they're not going to challenge that and try
mm.
and um help the employee really, So I think that person was
Yeah.
lucky that they had people like you to support them and say, hey, this is not the case. Let's prove that, they are able to do the job and blah blah blah, that there's other circumstances that are not being recognized or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of factors came into play to make that visible, right? And so that we were able to, um,
Hmm,
look into it properly. And that made a difference, right?
hmm,
Because sometimes that information isn't there and there's no trigger to make you look a little bit deeper, but like it definitely taught a lesson of like maybe always
hmm.
look a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
which is kind of counter to this notion of like trust, right, within an organization.
Yeah.
Um, because you want to give managers a certain amount of autonomy to make these choices, but then you also have to have oversight to make sure that they're behaving in a way that is like fair and
Hmm.
equitable, like all of
Hmm.
those things. The other way that we utilized the PIP where someone did fail was genuinely because they weren't performing and they were having a lot of issues, and we had talked to them ad nauseum probably for like 6 months. Like it was a lot, and this was 6 months after they would have been fully trained, right? So not like the
Hmm.
first
Hmm.
6 months, but a 6 month period.
Yeah.
Just like over and over again, like talk to them, like how they weren't, and they had comparative peers, right? So it wasn't that they were
Okay.
standalone, and it was like your peers are all doing this, you should
Hmm.
be doing this too. And we did have to put them on a PIP, and we genuinely, really, really wanted them to succeed the PIP because we really liked them. And like, let's
Hmm.
not ignore that bias that exists in companies if you really like a person.
Yeah.
They were lovely. They were very personable. They were very, just they were great to work with, like very professional, but they were just not getting the job done, and
Hmm.
they had to go on a PIP, and they failed,
Hmm.
and they
Yeah,
eventually had
that's
to be
fair.
let go, which is fair. But again, that's how it should be used,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah, give them a chance. And if, yeah,
Mm,
but
yeah,
then, yeah, it's very hard to know whether it's being used with good intentions
very difficult.
or not. And I get that's
Yeah,
subjective to the employee probably as well, you know.
yeah.
But
But again,
mm,
it's down to how it's used. And the problem with PIPs is that there's an imbalance in power when you are establishing the terms of the PIP to start with, and that's
mm,
when it's difficult. So I would always advise an employee that if you are being told, "Hey, we're going to put you on a PIP," you should say, "Great, I'm going to bring along somebody with me to just like." In the same way, if you were having any difficult conversation, like, you want to bring somebody with you to just like help you navigate that.
mm-hmm,
And so that you can actually negotiate the terms of your PIP, right?
mm-hmm.
Because that's
Oh,
the tricky thing. Like and again, this depends on the company. But if the company said, "Hey, in order for you to succeed, you have to like sell 100 units," and you could be like, "But nobody sells 100 units."
yeah, yeah. Is it within reason, like
Yeah,
what
can you
they're,
tell me what like
mm-hmm,
you want to say? Okay, you want me to sell 100 units? Can you give me like the min and max of like the department in
mm-hmm,
terms of how many units per person is sold? What's the average? Surely then we could look at, well, in the first months I should get to like the minimum, and then I should get to the average, and then
mm-hmm,
I should, within a certain
mm-hmm,
period of time. You should also be able to negotiate training. So if someone says, "Hey, we need you to be able to do this," and your head going, "Well, I'm going to fail this. I don't know how to do that."
mm-hmm,
That then is your opportunity slash responsibility to say, "Great, can you provide the training in order to make sure that I am
mm-hmm,
capable, like that I'm able to do this and I have the knowledge and blah 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 blah." And so like again, in the best company with the best of intentions, that should be doing it. So you should be
mm-hmm,
able to, negotiate a fair PIP that is something that's achievable. You should never
mm-hmm,
be setting a PIP for someone or accepting a PIP where they set unachievable goals. Like they should be
mm-hmm.
achievable. They should be comparative to other people's achievements within other people's performance within the company. If you are receiving a PIP that's completely unachievable and they refuse to negotiate on that, I mean, yeah, count your days. There's not, and like that's not a good thing. That's just like at that point you actually have no power in that situation. Your best bet is to look for another job because
Yeah.
do you even want to succeed within that? They're clearly
Yeah,
terrible.
exactly. If that's
Yeah,
their
yeah,
culture, then you don't really want to work there. God.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And there's plenty of examples of that.
Anyway, so long story short, if you're on a PIP, your manager hates you, or there's genuine intentions there if you work for a company that Jenny is in charge of.
I think, long story short,
Oh.
if you are being put on a PIP, negotiate it, and if you can't, they're trying to let you go.
Hmm. Hmm.
If they
Yeah.
genuinely want you to succeed, they will negotiate in good faith. And I don't mean negotiate like a salary negotiation. You just should
Yeah.
negotiate realistic goals that are comparative to the performance of your peers.
Hmm.
And that should be measurable. Like you should be able to
Yeah.
say, okay, give me the metrics. You're saying we need you to like be more of a leader. It's like, okay, well, what does that look like? I need like 5 metrics to assess that I am
Hmm.
more of a leader. Or do
Yeah.
you mean complete like do I need leadership training? It's the company's responsibility to provide that, right? Like so
Yeah. That's good to
there
know.
there should be things that you can do. It should be a discussion. Like if someone's saying, "Hey, you're not performing well, we're putting you on a PIP," it's like, okay, well, let's sit down and discuss the PIP, right? I
Hmm.
need to
Hmm.
fully and you can frame it, right? I need to be able to fully understand what success looks like in order to be able to go into this and really try and perform as you expect me to perform.
Hmm. Hmm.
And which is honestly a genuine way to approach that as well, if you do want to. If you don't want to, unethical pro tip, if you don't want to, you just accept the terms of the PIP and then have them pay you to find a new job. And by that I mean you might have, oh, we're putting you in a PIP, you have 1 month to do it. You'd be like, okay,
Hmm.
great. And then you just consciously fail the PIP while you look for another job, right?
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
unethical pro tip, but you will know the situation you're in once you
Well, the
have that
sense.
conversation, and you should have that conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Be able to sense it.
Yeah. Because the thing
Mm.
is like in Canada here, it can be very difficult. It depends on how like, you know, kind of risk conscious you are as a company, but there's a lot of companies who are very risk conscious in terms of like legal liability. And you can't actually tell somebody, hey, listen, if you don't like get this together, like we're going to have to let you go.
Mm. Hmm.
That's, you can't really say, unfortunately, you
Yeah.
can't really say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the PIP is this official way of basically saying that. Like, if
Yeah.
you
It's
don't do X, Y, and
implied
Z, we're going to,
or
yeah,
it's
like,
inferred by the PIP. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that is your written warning,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
it's utilized anyway in a
Hmm.
lot of cases. So yeah,
Hmm.
negotiate
Hmm.
your PIP. If you can't negotiate your PIP and it's unrealistic, start looking for another job.
Hmm. That's
Yeah,
scary stuff.
yeah. And you know, if you need advice on how to actually put in a good process of using PIPs for for good reason,
Contact Wren
you can
Insight Group.
come and ask us. We will help you. And if anybody
Yeah.
wants us to give you more advice as an employee about how to negotiate a PIP or how to navigate a PIP, we
Hmm.
will consider talking about that in more depth.
Yeah. And if you're a terrible manager, contact us as well. We could probably let you know you are.
Honestly, honestly, yeah. Now, obviously, but yeah, like there's a lot of great intentioned managers out there who struggle with these kind of things, and you know, training and advice can be provided.
Hmm. Yeah.
Everybody in the company benefits if everybody in the company knows how to utilize this mechanism in a way that is like
Hmm.
beneficial. You know,
Hmm.
employees, managers, leaders, everybody should know how to go in and negotiate or navigate, sorry, like PIP
Hmm.
situations. And you know, so everybody being in the fullness of their advice should benefit.
Yeah. Yeah.